Welcome, welcome. It's Deb at Frugal Handcrafting. I'm so glad to see you here today. I have a fun project in store for you. You know how I like to do very few supplies. You don't need a lot of fancy items. You need this one, you'll need your sewing machine and a pair of good scissors. And I found my supplies in my stash. I don't have a lot of fabric, but I ended up working with what I had, and I was amazed at what I came out with. And today it's going to be this Little Women tote. Little Women by Riley Blake is the charm pack leftovers that I had, and I had some yardage that went with it, and I discovered that I could make 2 of these bags out of what I had. I was amazed. And this is the disappearing 9 patch, and you'll find out how easy that is to make. This is not a hard make. So come along with me and I'll show you how to do it. I have these squares. They are from a 5x5 charm pack. And there's just some that I had left. I have quite a few left. I had used some of them. But the goal right now is to make a 9 patch. And I'm using these 5x5s and not changing the size on any of them at all right yet. So I'm just doing my 1/4 inch seam. I've got a little bit of a sticky note here just to extend my line a little bit. I'm trying to be really, really accurate with my sewing. So my overall goal is to end up with enough fabric to make a tote bag. And chain piecing right now, just adding on 2 at a time and keep right on going. One thing I have to be really aware of with this project is that this is mostly directional fabric. And that can be a little bit tricky sometimes, especially because I'm going to be cutting this up and some of it's going to be turned. But on the 9 patch, disappearing 9 patch, it's called, the corner blocks stay in the proper direction. So that might help me out a bit when I'm trying to make this look nice for the outside of my bag. I'm getting ready to iron these and then put this together for the 9 patch. And there's still time to change my mind, and I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't want these 2 fabrics so close to each other, so I'm going to move that one down. In fact, that one has to be down. Otherwise, these won't be showing upright. The corner ones are upright, so I had that in the wrong place. So it's a good time to double check for sure, and I'm going to be ironing all my seams. This one will go in one direction, and then the row below it will go in the opposite direction. So when I try to nest my seams, it's going to come out really beautifully. I'm going to be nesting these seams back to back, right side to right side, and then you just match up your stitching and make sure that you can feel that on both sides where your stitching is. And then I put a pin in it to keep that. And I do these first. Don't do any of the other pinning until you do these. This is going to be important for your squares to stay aligned. And so I'm doing 3 on 3 right now. And then my 9 patch will be all sewed together. Okay, I finger press down my center line. Now I'm going to hold this firmly, placing my ruler on that line. Press down tight, go slowly. Okay, so that's done. Now I'm going to lift this up and rotate this around and cut on my center line in this direction. Okay, so there I have my 4 blocks. And now I can change the configuration. I think if I was doing this the first time, I would not use a directional fabric. This is making it a little bit trickier, but I think I'm going to turn that one this direction and then maybe pull this one over this way. My goal is to have my directional fabric facing in the proper direction and also doing a cute layout. Ooh, that looks kind of good. I kind of like that. If you didn't have the directional fabric, you could maybe try to get your small squares into the same corner or something like that. But with this, I really have to be guided by these fabrics here, and that looks really cute. I really like that. I moved this to my Lazy Susan while I do the last panel that I have to cut, and I noticed I had two butting up against each other, so I've changed my configuration for that so I don't have two of the same colors next to each other. So here's what I decided to do. I've got my panels made. I've made two panels that are just this exact same size, and it's 17 inches across. So when I put it with the entire bottom, it's going to come out to about 25. And so how I did that was my third panel, I had made 3 of these panels. My third one, I unpicked it, split it in half, and added it to the original pieces that I had from my 9x9 patch. So I got myself a little bit more width, and then I decided I happened to have one of the coordinating fabrics. This is Little Women by Riley Blake, and I had the coordinating fabric, so the back is going to be this panel, and then I have enough to make 2 bags. So right now that's where I'm at. I'm gonna try to make 2 bags, and the next thing I need to do is put the fleece on the back and get quilting. Okay, I prepared my fabric. All you do is you take your fabric, spray it on to your backing. This is my batting that I'm using. It's actually fleece, and it's working quite well. Actually, it's not too thick. And so then you just smooth that out. It's going to hold it while you're sewing. You don't have to do any pinning or anything. So then I take my ruler, and I don't know if you can see the lines here, but here's some Tailor's chalk. I just ran down to the store to get some because I didn't have any. I thought I did, and that was $2.37 for a white and a blue, so that's not a bad deal. I was using a little bit of my grandchildren's chalk that was here at the house, but I find it's a bit dusty, and I didn't want to be getting that into my machine, but it's okay in a pinch, I would think, until you can get what you need. I didn't want to risk using the friction pen. This fabric is a little bit dark, and I didn't want to see any of that ghosting that sometimes you see, a little light haze left over, and I didn't want to take an even chance on that, so I didn't. So then I just measured corner to corner and then drew my lines, and I'm doing 1.5 inches apart. You could go wider than that. The video I'm following, Shabby Fabrics, hers were wider, so I might try a wider one next one, but I wanted it to be nice and tight for this particular purse. So now I'm starting on this section here, and what I'll do for that is I'll start in the middle and work my way out, I usually try to alternate the sides. So I'll start this going this direction, and then maybe do one down on this side and then one down on this side, and just keep working that way. And make sure I got my 3mm stitch going here, and then it's just a matter of following your line and sewing straight down. Holding the fabric as you go. Quilting is all done. Now I'm just going to square this all up. Make sure you leave your batting a little bit larger. That way if there's any pulling or anything, it might shrink up a little bit. I've decided to use this navy grosgrain ribbon for my handle, and it's upcycled. It came with a comforter. It's got the brand name on the inside, so I want to cover that up. And I have a little piece of fleece that's going to go inside of it to make it a little bit more bulky. And I'm just folding it in half over top. And this is 2 inches wide, so it's going to be an inch when it's done. And then I will just get some matching thread, sew down the side, and I will have a nice handle. And here's the one that I've done already. I think I'm going to stitch it down on both sides. I think that would look nice and neat, so I'm going to stitch back down this side also. And then I'll have my 17-inch handle. I have both of the handles pinned onto my bag, about 2 inches from the center. And I like to overhang it just a little bit, make sure that I'm catching everything in. So I'm going to get these sewed on and just baste them for the moment so that I can take that back out once they're put in there permanently. This is a good time to check and make sure your batting is all trimmed off nicely. Get any little pieces of thread cut off, make sure it's nice and clean. And I like to look at my stitching for my quilting, and I can see if I've missed any spot. You should have all these diamond shapes on there. It looks kind of neat. And so I think that's in really good form. So we're gonna go ahead and start to pin these sides together. And when I fold it in, I take my corner and then I open it up and I look to the inside of the bag because they're really matching up your seams. So here's my top seam, and then I can see underneath that it is matching up with the seam underneath and everything is laying nice and flat. So then I'm going to mark this one again with my 3 inches. Look for your spot. This is the 3-inch spot. And then just mark that, and you're going to sew right across that line. I've cut out my lining pieces, and those are the same size as the outside of the bag. And there's a free download on all your sizes on the Shabby Fabrics website under Fat Quarter Tote Bag. And just mine is just going to be one color. Her bag is beautiful. It's done in 2 different colors. There's a band at the top that's 3 1/4 inches around. I don't have that, so I have to add that to my total of the fabric that I'm using. So my main fabric and my lining fabric has to match that. And all I have to do right now is to repeat the process. So what you did for your handbag, following along on her video if you need the help with that, and then sewing that together, boxing the bottoms just the same, and then we can go to the part where we get to put it all together. I've gone ahead and made the little loop to hold our button, and you do a 9-inch piece of fabric, 9 inches long and 2 1/2 inches wide. And then you just take the sides and fold them in, and then fold it in half, and then you're going to stitch that. I stitched down both sides, just a little top stitch on there. And then what you do is you just fold it back, and you're going to get your little point, hold into the middle. Say this is the middle of your fabric. You hold into the middle of it, and you just pull. Let me show you that. You hold your fabric like that, pull in like that on that side and on that side, and get it so you get yourself a nice little point. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just sew across that, and that will be your little loop for your button if you want to add a button to yours. Okay, so I'm sewing it all around, 1/4 inch. making sure I'm still lined up, following along my guide, so I stay at that nice 1/4 inch seam. I went ahead and unpicked this. I did decide I wanted it to be a little longer, so I'm only leaving it out about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to just clip that and re-sew that on, and go around and check. I've got a little spot that didn't catch in, so go around again and check that, and then I will get to flip it through. Okay, so I think we're ready to pull this bag. Grab one of the corners and then just start pulling it out. I do have the name of the video. I'm sure it's Shabby Fabrics that did the little tab in more detail. I will have to go back and look at my garden tote bag because that's the same closure I made on that one. And I will have to check that to see for the more detailed view of how that is done, the buttonhole or the button loop is done. But I really like that kind of closure. If I'm not doing a zipper, I like to have a little something for a closure. And there, my loop is a little bit longer, so I'm liking that. So next, what we will do to our bag is roll these seams so that they are nice and flat. And your stitching is right at the top, and then clip that all the way around, folding over the area right here where I still have my opening. And I will probably take a minute to go back and iron that down so I have it nice and flat. But that's the idea. We're going to go around and pin the top. Make sure our corners are all pushed in. Can use my chopstick to help me with that, or even, you know, a blunt pair of scissors. You don't really have to have something special to do some of these things. I know when you're first starting out, can be an expensive hobby. So I use what I have. If I find something on sale and I really want that item, then I will see if I can get it. Depends how much I need it. But it is good to buy things a little bit at a time if it's something you really want. But getting started, you need a good pair of fabric scissors. And when I say good pair, you know, you can get them in Walmart. You don't have to spend a lot of money. And the cutting mat and the ruler I find is really helpful, but just the small one. And my ruler is an 18-inch ruler, and I can use that for just about everything. So I would suggest that length if you're going to buy a few supplies over time. But this is going to be the front of the bag. Now you notice on my bag, I did the front. I was pretty happy because I ended up getting 2 bags out of this. So I'm going to be making another bag, which I have in process too. But so I did the front with the charm square pack. And then I did the back because I happened to find that at one point I had bought some yardage that went with Little Women, but I just loved these so much that I had to buy the charm pack. And you know, charm pack is 5x5, so I make a lot of little dolls and clothes and things like that, but it's really not big enough to use for a lot of that. And I just didn't know what I was going to do with it. So that was part of the inspiration for doing this project, is having that charm pack and then deciding what I could do with it. And in the midst of that, I found out I could make 2 bags for the price of one practically, because the only thing I bought was the chalk for $2.37. So this is really a frugal project because I'm going back to what I have already purchased and using that. Just want to do a little recap on this bag. So many decisions to be made in order to do a bag really the way you want. My charm pack was really my inspiration. I have a vintage button here that I sewed on, and I really need to look in thrift stores. I need to do some more button collecting. If you're going to make bags a little bit larger than an inch is what I really like, and this one, yeah, is just an inch. So even an inch or a hair larger than that is what I really like. The tab here that I made, the little loop, is 4 inches, and I really like how that fits over the top, then leaves you some space if you have a bigger item inside. The handles were upcycled. They were made from grosgrain ribbon from a comforter that I purchased probably at Home Goods. They have lots of good comforters there and also good packaging that goes with it. I did end up putting a pocket inside of mine. I took a piece of fabric. For example, take a piece of fabric like this, and you would leave yourself an opening, but then sew all the way around the entire piece. And then you turn through your opening, iron it nice and flat, and then seam your opening that you turned through. And what I did was I sewed mine on about 2.5 inches down from the top, and I centered it on the lining. Before you put your lining in, that's the time to be doing that. And what I did was I separated this one. This one's about 9.5 across, and I separated it right in half because I feel if someone's going to be using this for a project bag, they want to put their phone and they want to put their keys in there, and then they have room for your project. So, or even if you're just, grabbing, going to the store. I mean, I personally like to have pockets in order to keep those things up where I know that I have them. So those are some of the features of this bag. And I did a lot of research, Pinterest. I went online. I had no idea what I'm making it out of until I went in and looked at what I had. But I'm really kind of drawn to making bags. And the practice is really good. I'm going to leave you the resources that I used. This was just so much fun. The Disappearing 9 patch, it makes it look really difficult, and it's really not. And you don't sew every little piece. It's the way you cut what you've made. You're really taking 5-inch squares. You're putting 9 of them together. And then once you have that together, you cut them as I showed you, and it makes your panel. So it's really a much easier way to make some really intricate looking quilting that, being new to quilting, I'm learning a lot, and I will give you all the good resources that I find in order to accomplish what we want to do in our beginning journey on quilting. But this is the bag. I am really very thrilled with how it came out. It's nice and sturdy. I did line mine. I mentioned with fleece. It is something that I had purchased at Joann's. It was not for bag lining, but I looked it up and it said that you could use it for bag lining. It's not that much thicker than what you'd buy in the store, and it's actually a better deal because you get more width. But if you wanted to get some of that similar batting like that at Walmart, I think it's about $5 for a good sized piece of it. So you can grab something like that. But I had 2 yards of white fleece, and it worked out perfectly. I don't have a walking foot, and my machine handled it really well. So there we have another bag, custom made, but inspired by so many other things and so many YouTubers that are really online giving you the best information to help you make the things that you want to make. And it always amazes me that I do a lot of hunting, get my inspiration, and then when I'm following along, I wasn't sure of the size. What size do I want? I want it to look cute. I end up on Shabby Fabrics YouTube channel again. So definitely check them out.